Welcome to a new episode of Outside the Panels with your host, Johnny the Machine Hughes.
Welcome everyone to an episode of Outside the Panels. I'm your host, Johnny the Machine Hughes. This week, I have got a creator who's kind of done it all. He's got a book out already and running a Kickstarter in a month or so. How's he fit it all in? I have no idea. Let's bring him on. Let's find out. It is the ultra talented. It's Mr. Norm Harper. Sorry, I had to do the
thanks for having me.
I had to do the cheers thing. Sorry.
No worries.
People at my age, younger than us, are going to be like, "What's he talking about? Cheers? What's that all about?"
Yeah. No. Every substitute teacher I ever had growing up, like they'd be doing the roll call, they'd get to my name, and they'd get like Norm, and they'd be like, "You seen the show?" And I'd be like 8 years old. I'd be like, "Yeah, I know what you're talking
about." Excellent. Thank you for making the time to be on the show. I really do appreciate it.
Oh, thank you for having me.
You must be full of busy. A book out and a Kickstarter in the wings.
Yeah. It's been a hectic couple months, which has been nice.
Good.
I enjoy staying busy.
Busy is better than not busy. That's how I look at it, right? So how did you get into comics? What is it about comics that you thought to yourself, you know what, I'm gonna try my hand at this, get involved? And you've created, and we're going to talk about a book you've written, Haphaven, which has a nice little charm to it, I've got to say.
Thank you.
There's some aspects in there that I absolutely totally can relate to, so we'll get to that in a little bit. But what is it about comics that you thought, oh, this is the best medium for me?
Well, comics have always been a part of my life. I really started with the Sunday comics or the Garfield and Far Side collections that my teachers would have in the classroom.
I'm a Calvin and Hobbes guy, so
Yeah, Calvin and Hobbes is fantastic. My parents would not subscribe to the paper that had Calvin and Hobbes in it, and it used to drive me crazy.
So my grandparents had to get a paper called the Daily Express over here, and it's super. I don't know what the right word for this is. So apologize. Well, I don't apologize, but it's scaremongering. Every headline is harshest winter in years. Electric prices soar. And the only redeeming factor of this whole paper is, as an 8-year-old kid, it had Calvin and Hobbes in.
Calvin and Hobbes. Calvin and Hobbes doing the bit with his dad, where he's doing the campaign fear mongering kind of stuff too. Criticizing the paper he's in, basically.
Yeah, great. And just I think nowadays the war is stupid gag that's kicking around.
Yeah,
with the Calvin and Hobbes with the little dart guns. Crazy. All right, sorry, I interjected. I apologize.
Oh no worries. That's how I started with the medium at large, I guess. And then in 1990-ish, I was in 6th grade, whenever that was, and the Marvel trading cards hit, and that's what pulled me into comic shops, and I fell hard and fast, and I actually in high school, I got to do a mentorship program. One of my classes junior year was some of us that qualified for this class, the school would find somebody that did the job you wanted to do, and they'd pair you up, and you'd spend the year getting mentored. So I grew up in San Antonio, Texas, and that's where Oni-Press is based. They're a small company, but they've been in operation for 20, 30 years.
Yeah, decades. So they're probably one of the OG indie companies, aren't they?
Yeah. And I was fortunate enough that the editor-in-chief at the time, Herb, would take me, every Monday I'd go to their offices, Monday afternoon after school, and I'd talk with Herb about just the medium and how it works and that kind of thing. And my final grade was to make a comic. But this is all this is the 90s. It's real pre-internet. I don't draw very well. You want me on your team in a game of Pictionary, but that's about as far as I go. So it was really hard, to connect with artists. So I did get my final project made and everything. And then I decided I'm gonna have to find other mediums that I want to tell stories in, even though comics was what made me fall in love with storytelling. And so for a while, I went off and tried other things, and then it was about 2012, 2013 when I lucked into just a panel at a WonderCon. I was going to watch like some cartoon voice actors or something, and
Okay.
I don't remember what the panel was supposed to be, but that panel never showed up. So there were some people in the audience that stood up and were like, "We self-published comic show, want to hear about that till they get here?" So we were like, "Yeah, go for it." And they took the stage and they started talking. And I turned to my wife. I was like, "We can do this, you know." And it's like now the internet exists. You can connect with artists, you know, all over the world and that kind of thing. And so I went full force into making comics, and that's how I got here.
I used to say that the biggest influence on comic books over the last 20, 30 years was the coloring process. How it's moved from, excuse me, as how it's moved from the old skill to digital coloring, how you can layer stuff now. I think I've changed my mind. I think the internet and the ability to move digital art from one place to the other, to put lettering and get scripts across the world, I think that's probably the thing that surprises me the most, at how worldwide comics can be. And what kind of gets me is, I know manga's huge, but it seems to be the Western style of comics that the indie creators are running to. Is that because it's familiarity breeds familiarity?
Yeah, and I think it's a little generational. Like some of the younger creators I see have a lot more of that like manga and anime influence in their work, because they grew up with it a little bit more versus some of us older people that didn't see a whole lot of it.
Be careful what you say there.
I'm in the category with it.
That's right. You say you got into comics around 1990. I was like, dude, that's like, you know, I was 20. What was that? I was 20 years deep into that by that point. But not quite 20 years. What I was going to say, so 1990, the Marvel trading cards bring you in. I think back then there would be the Marvel Universe cards. So you start buying comic books. Who were you buying? Who were your influences, or who remain your influences now?
I started went really heavy on the Marvel stuff, Spider-Man, X-Men, and that kind of thing, and then I really started to gravitate.
Spider-Clone came along and dropped that warp speed, right?
I think I was out of it by Spider-Clone. My brother might have had a couple of those issues. But once I started picking up Wizard and they were shining spotlights on things like Concrete and Bone, especially, that was much more I still love superheroes and you know, the X-Men and everything, but X-Men 97 is so good, by the way.
I haven't seen the last episode.
Yeah, I haven't. I've still got that one to watch tonight. But
so, let's not spoil it for each other.
Yeah,
but you mentioned Born. I didn't see it before. I did not see it before. But when you've said Born and having looked at your book now, I can see influences. I can see it.
Oh,
absolutely.
Thank you.
And Born is an absolute gem. Concrete by was it Paul Chadwick? What a great book! What an absolute. You know, these are stonewall classics for any indie writer. And you think Concrete was Dark Horse. It's probably one of Dark Horse's
lot of the Dark Horse stuff back then was really really spoke to me. And it was, you know, just the way that, especially in that era before comics had sort of become the juggernaut they are now, there was just voices you didn't see anywhere else. You know, in any other kind of medium. Yeah.
It's funny you mention it like that, Norm, because my friends and I were talking just in a little chat thing, and we're saying that so many creators come along now and they do a comic book, and the main priority of the comic book is to get it sold to Netflix or the Prime or whatever. And I kind of think, I mean, if that's people's goals, that's people's goals. I tip my hat and say, congratulations, go for it, right? If that's what you want to do, knock yourself out. But I miss the creation of comic books for creating comics. Yeah. Not creating IP to sell on somewhere. Fair enough, Superman, Batman, Spider-Man, the Avengers, they've all done that and they've crossed over. But look how long it took them, right?
Right.
So it's interesting from that point of view. So influences of Bourne, some concrete, some superhero stuff. You can't get in the comics without hitting superheroes somewhere along the line.
Sure.
And now published yourself. This is great. So tell us the story of Haphaven. I've got it here to show. It's our background cover at the moment. So if you give me 2 seconds, I'll bring the book up.
No worries.
So the wonders of technology. There we go.
There it is.
Yeah, there it is in all its glory. So I like this a lot. I'm only halfway through. I will admit, I'm only
No
halfway
worries.
through. But what I've read, it's just absolutely. There's parts of it that just, as I said earlier, just ring true to me so much. So what's the story? What's the lowdown on this book?
So Haphaven's the story of Alex Mills, who is a very superstitious 13-year-old girl. And when she steps on a crack and does in fact break her mother's back, she has to follow a warrior leprechaun into Haphaven, which is the magical world from which all of Earth's superstitions draw their power, so that she can retrieve a rabbit's foot to save her mom. And so Louis Joyce and I took every sort of superstition you've ever heard of: it, 4-leaf clovers, knocking on wood, horseshoes, broken mirrors, lucky
the
pennies.
ladders.
Yeah, and tied them all together under a single mythology to tell this sort of adventure story that harkens back to sort of the 80s fantasy movies that we grew up with.
So a little bit like Labyrinth.
Labyrinth, or the Neverending Story. Like those were a lot of our. We wanted it to be that, like, it's for kids, but we wanted to let it be a little bit scary and sometimes like a little slower paced, like purposefully to create a mood and that kind of thing.
I have to say that when I was younger, I went through a state of like making sure I didn't stand on cracks and all that sort of stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And some superstitions, well, I used to play American football in this country, and I wouldn't cut my fingernails on game day because I needed them to help catch footballs, which is rubbish because I wore gloves. I wore the steel gloves. So that didn't, but I never did that. So all these superstitions kind of play in. Looking at it with, I suppose, mature eyes, and looking at it through the prism of today's society, are there elements of OCD that creep into Alex's behavior?
I think maybe a little bit. I don't have a ton of experience with that. I would hate to misrepresent anything about that.
I agree. I'm just kind of thinking because I have elements of OCD. Okay,
Mm-hmm.
There's I catch myself doing the same thing over. So I'll lock the back door, for example, and then I'll go to bed and I'll lie in bed and think, did I lock the back door? Now, logically, I know I've locked the back door, but I still have to get up and I have to go down and check.
Yeah, I used to be the same way. Like when I would work retail and I'd be closing up for the night, I'd get like halfway home and be like, I don't remember if I locked the store. I turn around and drive back.
Yeah.
And so I started like singing a song when I locked the door. Because they'd be like, no, I sang the song, so I know the door is locked. Like, do that kind of thing.
I hit the handle with my hand. I just like knock it. So then when I'm halfway up the stairs, I think, oh, if I lock the door, oh yeah, I can feel it on my hand. So yeah, I'm good. So it's the same sort of complimentism. The reason I bring this up is as we see the examples of the various superstitions come into play. We look at the carved bat, the baseball bat. Hard to do a carved football, that has to be said, but still, baseball season, you can get away with it. It's interesting how this becomes. I'm going to be a little bit superhero-y. It's kind of like Two-Face and his coin.
Yeah,
it becomes as much of a crutch as it does a help in some ways.
Yeah, absolutely. And what I really wanted to use the book to sort of discuss is like the way that like morality can be it is very much like contextual. And we like to think like that, when you're trying to teach your kid right from wrong, and you say like, hey, like stealing is wrong, don't ever steal. But then as adults, we can all kind of like imagine a scenario wherein the stealing might be a justified action.
Yeah,
and
I stole a loaf of bread to feed my family.
Yeah, or Robin Hood just as a folk hero, rob from the rich, give to the poor.
Yeah.
And so I like replacing like basic morality with just the superstitions and sort of saying like even these are contextual, based on what you want to accomplish and who's telling you what's right and what's wrong and their point of view. And so yeah, it's like a rabbit's foot is lucky unless you happen to be the rabbit. So,
I was going to say that. That's just my punchline.
Yeah. So yeah, that was really the impetus for using superstitions as a as the subject of the story, was to kind of talk about these other things in a way that you could begin to introduce that to kids without being incredibly complex and confusing.
You mentioned about Alex steps on a crack, breaks her mom's back.
Mm-hmm.
It's the impact. I looked at it a little bit deeper. Maybe I've overthought this, because I read it and I thought to myself, you're dealing with elements of guilt and elements of ramifications going on here, and you kind of Alex blames herself for what happened, but in fairness, it had absolutely nothing to do with standing on the crack, or did it? In real life,
you're only halfway through, so I won't say it.
So you kind of got to think, there's. I started to challenge myself and think, well, what does this mean about our beliefs? What do our beliefs cause us to do, interact with the world, who we talk to, why believe what they believe, and so on. So it kind of changed from this cutesy story for me to this whole sort of pot boil of elements of OCD, belief, faith, and ramifications of that faith. And I'm like, what? It's a baseball bat.
I hope that's all in there. Yeah.
How did you manage? If that's your intent, I absolutely applaud you, because there is so many heavy subjects covered in that statement, and yet the book reads so well. It reads super friendly from page 1 all the way through. So how do you manage to kind of spin all those plates, man? Because that's some heavy stuff.
That was the result of first of all, just the collaboration, not just with Louis, but Chris Meyer, who was. I originally thought that I was going to self-publish Haphaven, and I had done one book already, Ricky, that I had self-published, and I acted as like the editor. I wrote it. I was the editor. I was the publisher. Matthew Foltzgrave was the artist, but I was shouldering a lot of responsibility on that. But it's a lot more straightforward, just talking animal adventure. It's an adaptation of Ricky Tikki Tavi from the Jungle Book.
Oh, okay.
And but Haphaven and all the magic and the rules, and it's a story that I had been thinking about already for years. But being able to have Chris, who came on as the editor, Louis as the artist, and like really just being able to sort of have them help me. Like sometimes I wouldn't even say like this is what I want to talk about, but I'd like just put a scene forward, and Chris would come back and be like, I have no idea what that scene was about, and those kinds of things. So it's just the process of working together and being open to what other people are telling me about the material, and really just putting in the work to get it where it's hitting those beats I want it to hit, but it's not.
It's still quite,
reads like an adventure, like
it reads well. It reads well as the adventure. It absolutely does. But for me the metaphors within this, I'm going to ask this, and please, I'm asking a magician to show me his trick here. That's what I'm doing here, right? So when you could come up with a story idea, when you came up for Haphaven and you thought of, right, okay, we're going to use superstitions as our motif to either help or hinder, we're going to do this and we're going to do these elements. How much of the metaphoric elements we've discussed already, like ramifications, like beliefs and faiths, how much of those were planned, and how many you sat back and thought, oh well, this can now this means that, so I can go in a different direction. This means, yeah, do you know what I'm saying? So how much of it is kind of like pre-planned, and how much of it is creative as you go through that process?
I'd say for this, a lot of it was sort of pre-planned. Because like the real genesis of this project, going back to like, it was probably like 2010 or 2012. I was doing some Hollywood stuff, and I had some reps.
Mr. Bigwig there.
Nothing.
I'm gonna have to Google that.
I had some reps, and I had sort of I knew like I wanted to do a story that like was about superstition, just because I thought that would be fun, and I didn't have the metaphor, the thematic like anchor yet.
Mm-hmm.
And I was writing it was basically Ghostbusters, but superstitions instead of ghosts. And
it was afraid an old superstition.
It was like a family. I'm not gonna remember everything accurately here, but it was a family moves into like a town, and just within this town, like the superstition rules apply, and then they have to uncover why, and they build like ray guns that use like electricity shooting through the arc of a horseshoe for like good luck beams or whatever. And it was fine. It was fun, but like I didn't care. I was just writing it because my reps were telling me like, this is what you need to write because it's commercial and it, you know, blah blah blah.
Yeah.
And just was, but like I didn't care. And so in revising a draft of that, and I kind of hit on the step on a crack thing and realized like, oh, like look at all the drama inherent in this little sing-songy rhyme. Like if you step on a crack and you break your mother's back, like there's the guilt you were talking about before. There's just family connections, and it's like a Brothers Grimm fairy tale, and this like little 2-line thing. And so that's when all of the thematic stuff like dropped into my head. And the major arc of this story like hit me like in an afternoon. And I went back to them and I was like, this is draft 2. I don't like, we're going to throw away all this other stuff. It'll be about this kid who does this and has to go into the magical world. And they were like, no, not at all. So we just put everything in the drawer, and I started working on something else, and I just let it sit there. But like it wouldn't go away. This like revised version of that story like would not leave me. And I'd pull that out every so often and fiddle with it. But again, like it was about, you know, like I said, I worked on it for a couple of years before I thought like, oh, let's turn it into a comic and let's bring it to life.
Cool.
And a lot of that was figuring out like those real broad stroke, like, and what does each thing mean and that kind of thing. And then once I had that worked out, it was just about executing it in a way that made it fun and not just a metaphor. That works for sure. Yeah. So it was just, I'd say probably most of it was planned, but it was just hard labor for a good long time.
Right. On that note, we're going to take a quick break for one of our other shows. You just sit there, Norm. Don't go anywhere. You might enjoy this. Who knows? So we'll go for this one. I have it on good authority that this one's about ran its course, I'm afraid, and we're getting a new one. So you'll have to keep checking it out and see what's going on. Here's the original. It is The Old Timers.
Do you want to find out what makes the professor do his happy dance? Check out the Old Timers Comic Book Show, only on the UCPN.
There you have it, the Old Timers Comic Book Show, where the hosts aren't old, but the comics most certainly are. New episodes around the corner are due. check out the last one. It was a May the Fourth be with you special for all you Star Wars fans out there. Yeah, there's a mistake that straight away, man. I'm going to lose people because I've got those two misspoke there. Right, let's have another look at some of the art of the book. Let's see. I think art-wise, I think the book absolutely fits the current modus operandi or the current vibe of so many indie books that I see right now. So I think you've probably done well sitting back on this for a while. So back when they turned around and said version 2, God no, you know. Fast forward a few years, it's like, yes, you know.
Yeah.
It's kind of these things come around in swathes. We talked earlier about how rabbit feet are lucky. That's a scary ass rabbit, my friend. Look at his ears. He's bunk.
They're quite large, but no, I think the rabbit's maybe my favorite character in the book. He will grow on you.
Are you a full script writer with then add embellishments? Because I imagine when you've self-published and you've been the guy that does absolutely everything, that you have a tendency, and I always think this anyway, that writers are mini editors by default. You know, are you a bit of a takeover Ted? Do you kind of let the artist breathe? How's that work for you?
I'm probably somewhere in the middle. Like I do turn in a full script, but I only, my major concerns are like sort of like where the page turns and pacing out things like that. And I'll only get super detailed with any kind of panel description or anything if it's plot relevant. If two characters are exchanging like a valuable item, like, you know, then I'll call it like, this is where that close-up needs to be, this is where it needs to hit, and then, you know, describe the item. But I also sometimes know, like, you know what, this is just this is where I can like stand back and let the artist make some decisions, and I'll put it right in the script. I'll just go like in Ricky, there was a couple pages where the mongoose and the cobra were fighting. And I was just like, all right, you've got this much page real estate. This is how it has to like conclude, like go nuts. If you need me to break it down more, like let me know. But otherwise, it's in your hands. And he loved that, and he ran with it, and it was great. So I try, and I know I say that, and probably you'll go to any artist I've worked with, and they'll be like, oh, is that what he said? Like, but,
hold on, let me get Louis on the phone. I'll be back in 2 seconds. Just see what you say.
Yeah, you know, because it's sometimes I think something might be important, and they'll disagree, but that's just part of the collaboration, which I enjoy so much. Is the end product is always better because other people have had input, and it's just important to know like when you need to hold firm and when you need to just get out of the way.
It's interesting you bring this kind of element up. I don't think we saw it particularly well on the scan that I showed there. But in the book, the rabbit, he's drawn on a cave, and there's symbols on the cave wall, and you've got to think, well, hold on a second, there's got to be some science and portents going on there for sure. I'm not saying anything.
Yeah. In that, I think what I said to Louis was like the rabbit's been living in this cave for this amount of time, and this is how he like keeps busy. So some of it can be nonsense, but some of it like let's you know put in these things. Yeah. And then there was like I think some discussion. I think Louis even sent me like not ruins, but runes, like examples. And you know there was that kind of discussion, and then he went in and did the page. But that was not like an Alan Moore like 4-page like description of how that exact wall should look. You know?
Yeah, Tolkien, 10 chapters on what a stone looks like.
Yeah.
Draw stone, right.
It's a rock, whatever.
You say this, and this is a nice little segue. Actually, you talk about how like you know things can be so up in the air and super creative and stuff. But I love stuff like this. When people put together a map of the world that you're going to live in for a period of time while you're going through the book, stuff like this floats my boat like nothing else, you know. And again, is this, you mentioned art wise isn't your strong point. How much collaboration goes into something like this with the artists? We give artists a full shout out. It's Louis, what's his surname?
Louis Joyce was the artist.
Louis Joyce, there you go.
Yeah.
So how much of the collaboration here is you, and how much is Louis? Does it work like that? I don't know.
This was quite a bit, because Louis and I, we basically had a finished book before the original version of the book came out from Lion Forge. The new deluxe edition this June comes out from Oni-Press.
Mm-hmm.
And what we took to Lion Forge was basically a finished book, and they were like, "Can we put chapter breaks into it?" Because at the time we didn't have the chapter breaks, and we had to figure out like what are those going to look like, and the map was the solution. So like at every chapter break, you'll have the map, and then one of the leprechauns, he's unseen in the story, but his name is Smidgen Stonewick, and he is a historian of Haphaven. So you get like every new chapter break, like a few more of his pages for the history that he's writing end up like on top of the map.
Cool.
So yeah, Louis and I had to go back and backtrack and get like every major location from the story and go like, okay, where does all that sit in relation to each other? Because I had a version of my brain from writing the script, and Louis had a version of it in his brain from drawing the book, but the map was like really one of the last elements to come together. So we had to like, oh, well, I thought they'd go from here to here. I thought they'd go from here to here, you know.
My sat nav takes me here.
And then we had to decide like, well, what are the other places out around on the edge of the map? Because there's some spots on the map you don't see in the narrative, but we kind of had to decide like, what are the things we could hint at that someday we might go back and revisit, you know, and stuff like that. So the map being one of the last things, like it was super collaborative. And even like the team at Lion Forge, our editor Grace, that came on board when we ended up at Lion Forge, and I think maybe even some of the design people, like it was a discussion, and it was a very like real collaboration.
Stuff like that. As I said earlier, this adds weight to a book, like for me, for sure. You mentioned earlier, this isn't a spoiler. You said earlier, step on a crack. There you go. That's what happens. Yep. That's what happens. Powerful stuff, because I mean this scene occurs after a great baseball game. They have a discussion, acts out of spite perhaps, and this is what happens.
Little adolescent rage.
Yeah, so it's interesting how much power the superstitions have, and the belief that Alex has of them, for sure. Interesting, for sure.
And you'll learn it's part of they impact Alex so specifically hard, like for reasons.
Okay, we won't go down there because we don't want to spoil the game. Where is my link? All right, so you also have a Kickstarter coming out, correct?
I do, yes. Early June, first week, probably the same day or so that Haphaven drops. We'll be launching that.
Okay, so let's have a bit of a share on this.
Yeah,
let me just boom, get rid of that so I can share it properly. Here it comes. You're currently on.
Yep, there we are.
There it is, preview stage. If you can check out the Kickstarter. There it is.
And this is the Iron Barge. It's a post-apocalyptic talking animal adventure that I'm doing with Megan Carter as the artist. It's Mouse Guard meets Mad Max, and the idea is that it's set in Las Vegas, but long after like humankind has vanished for all the various reasons that we might eventually vanish. And the animals who are left behind, the exotic animals from all the exhibits in Las Vegas, the domesticated pets, the scavengers and predators from the surrounding desert, they've all taken shelter inside the casinos of the city, and each casino is now a sovereign city-state kingdom that lives a society that sort of reflects whatever the theme of the casino was. So like in Excalibur, it would be like knights, and in New York. It's sort of a mafia-based thing, and the Circus is a band of traveling entertainers, and Treasure Island would be pirates, and on and on and on. So once a year, these kingdoms take the criminals that they've arrested that year, and they banish the worst of them to a penal colony called the Ark. And the iron barge is the craft that sails around in the sewer, which is now like an underground river to protect everybody from climate change and everything. And they collect those prisoners and ferry them to the Ark. And so our main character is Brooke, who is an otter and the first mate on the iron barge. It's her first year. And they pick up a mysterious prisoner who is a pirate, but has come. They pick him up from a kingdom where he says, like, I just want to wait here and go to the Ark. He's got his own reasons, mysteriously. But why don't you go to the Ark? And so they pick him up, and then pirates descend on the iron barge and attack it. And Brooke and Porter have to go on the run. So she's determined to get him to the Ark. He's determined to get there, but the pirates want him for mysterious reasons, which will all evolve. But so it's a road trip as they're on the run, like through all these various kingdoms. And so like every, like the sort of environments that they're in and the types of characters they're interacting with, like evolve as they continue to go on the run. And that's all I'll say for now. But
that's fine.
It's a lot of fun.
It sounds fun. Sounds like Logan's Run meets all sorts of crazy I Am Legend stuff in there. Survivors.
Yeah. It's and just really having a lot of fun with the different environments and the different themes and all of that.
I'm interested to see which animals work in the strip joints. Okay. Sorry, someone had to say it, right? Someone had to say it.
I'm not saying you're wrong. I gotta save some surprises.
Maybe the snakes, because they like to shed the skin, don't they? Anyway, no spiders allowed because they're all hands. So I'm getting into it now. I hope you're making a note of these ideas. Yeah. It's cool. The art style for your Kickstarter and to some extent Haphaven, it has that kind of young reader feel to it. Is this something that you have consciously gone out and said it's a young, as you were saying earlier, it's a young reader book, the art's got to represent that, because stylistically there are quite a lot of young reader books out there now. I mean, back when I was a kid, you just bought a comic book and that was it, you were done with. So,
right. They were all for the kids, and at least as far as like most of the adults in my life were concerned. But
half of them now say that to me.
I think my voice as a writer skews that way.
Cool.
And I like art that is at least I like all kinds of art when I'm reading. Sometimes the like super detailed, you can see the little like plastic nub at the into Captain America's shoelace kind of art is like really fantastic to read. But like when I'm telling a story, I like things that are a little bit more abstract. I like I like a little bit more style in there and not like just perfect realism, and that matches up well with, I think, just the kinds of stories I tend to even have the ideas for. It's just my voice, I guess. Yeah.
Excellent. All right, so we're coming to the end of the show. This is your opportunity, Norm. Your last 60 seconds or so to tell people why they should be checking out Haphaven, that's due out on June the 5th.
You should check out Haphaven because it's a thrilling adventure story, a lot of fun, deals with some heavy themes, but like you'll laugh, you'll cheer.
You will.
It's all that stuff going on. The deluxe edition, it's a hardcover that Oni has put together, is gorgeous. It's got fantastic bonus content in the back that shows Louis' art process and a lot of our early character sketch. And we talk about the development of the story and that kind of thing. And it's just a ton of fun. And I hope if you love the story from our original version, that you'll check this out. If the story's brand new to you, we haven't changed the narrative in any way. This isn't like a Star Wars special edition comic. It's just, so check it out. Travel to Haphaven for the first time and have a ton of fun, I hope.
Cool. Excellent. Okay, so if you want to order Haphaven, it's out on June the 5th. There's the diamond code. It's Alpha Papa Romeo 241694. Check out your local comic book store. You have a website?
Yeah, thatnormdude.com, and I'm that Norm Dude on most of the major social media platforms: Twitter, Instagram, Blue Sky, a bunch of others I'm forgetting right now.
So on your website,
I'm not super active, but anything important about what I've got going on, like I do make sure to post.
So on your website, there's an opportunity to order the book, perhaps see some of the other stuff you've done.
Yeah, absolutely.
Cool, excellent. There you go on Twitter and Insta. Kept it simple. I like that. Cool. And as we mentioned earlier, there is the banner for Iron Barge. Live.
Yeah, the ironbargecomic.com will redirect you to our Kickstarter page, and you can get notified for launch there.
Perfect. Absolutely spot on. Norm, thank you so much for spending the time. A busy period for you, for sure, with so much going on. So I really do appreciate the effort you've put into this. Thank you for having me. No, you're more than welcome. More than welcome. That's it, everyone. That's it for another show. Don't forget to check out the UCPN for all your favorite shows. You saw the trailer for it earlier, the Old Timers Comic Book Show. If you like your comics a little bit Marvel, and you've already heard us wax how good X-Men 97 is, don't forget to check out the No Prize podcast. I'm sure the guys will be taking a look at that last episode. And for you DC fans, it's the definitive crusade. What more could you want? I think we've got our bases covered. Yeah, we'll see. Norm, thanks again. Really do appreciate it.
Thank you, Johnny.
As for everyone else, I've been your host, Johnny the Machine Hughes. As always, adios.
Visit undercovercapes.com for the latest and greatest podcasts via the Undercover Capes Podcast Network. Also visit our parent company website, comiccrusaders.com, all about comic pop culture.